Hello and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism, a podcast about urbanism and stuff. And today we have a special episode because typically we talk about the news, we talk about what's going on in the world of urbanism, but this is going to be a bonus episode. So I'm joined only by a special guest today, Roy Symons.
Thanks, Nick. Good to see you again.
Well, yes, you too. So welcome
Symons,
to the show.
by the way.
What's that?
Symons, by the way.
Simon, sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. Everybody gets that wrong.
Well, now I know. Hopefully I don't forget it. So yeah, we had the opportunity to meet up a few months ago. I think it was back in September.
Yeah.
And it was after I released my series of videos from visiting the Netherlands in the summer. And I had mentioned your book, which had inspired me to go on that trip, which is this book here I have in front of me, Feet's Pad. I don't know if it's being blocked out by my filter thing. It probably is, but we'll put it up on screen later for sure, which we will get into, right? Because I love this book. This is like my coffee table book right now. It literally sits there. People have asked about it. Oh, what's that? It looks so cool. It's striking, right? The red bike path, right? The big word there. It just like, it really pops. And it's been cool that, yeah, it's great to have people flip through it and have their curiosity tickled. Because a lot of people don't know about this stuff, right? Like we're steeped in this world of cycling in the Netherlands and what they do over there. So it's cool to open up other people's eyes to that world, which is fantastic. So I can't wait to talk about this. But first, I have to ask the question, who is Roy Symons?
Yeah. The short version, I guess, is by day professional engineer, work in the planning and design of bicycle infrastructure for the most part, complete streets, kind of sustainable transportation, I guess you would say. But my background is kind of traffic modeling and that kind of thing when I was in Scotland. But yeah, I came to Canada back in 2008. Came for the mountain biking on the North Shore. Watched too many videos of that back home and thought that seemed like a good idea. And then, yeah, just over time, I guess, like started reading a few books, Walkable City being the first one. And it's like that really flicked a switch in my head and kind of inspired me down that path and away from that kind of traffic modeling path. And about the same time, Vancouver were starting to build their protected network and you were starting to see good things happen. And that's really, I guess, the biggest shift in my career, I would say, and kind of led me where I am now.
Right. Okay. Well, there's a few things I want to hit on the head there.
Yeah.
There's so much. So first of all, how did you get interested in engineering and planning in the first place?
I would say like when I was at school, I was maybe not that passionate about anything, to be honest. I kind of drifted into it. Didn't know what I was going to do when I left school. Worked with my dad for a couple of months. He's like a, I don't know, joiner back home. I don't know what you'd call it here. Not so much handyman. Like he worked on big construction
like a carpenter
projects.
Maybe?
Yeah, kind of. But he wasn't like making furniture or something. He was like doing like shop fronts and bank screens and stuff like that. Kind of didn't want to do that. I was working in like -16 in the winter in Scotland. I was like, no, I need an office job or something here.
Yeah, so, that's hard work, man.
Yeah, no, I got into it really I reached out to a bunch of companies in Edinburgh and said, I like technical work. So I was like, I'm interested in this. Could I do some like, just kind of shadow some people, like do a bit of work experience here. And one guy replied back and said, yeah, like they needed somebody. It was a small firm in Edinburgh at the time. Yeah, loved the first few months there. And then they were like, well, if you really want to do this, you should probably go to university. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I probably should.
Might as well.
It's kind of tired of school, but I was like, yeah. So I had like a year out from finishing high school, doing the thing with my dad, doing this work experience. And then, yeah, like did my 4 years at uni, went back to that place, moved around a little bit in Edinburgh, and then came here on vacation. Loved it. The firm I worked for at the time there had an office in Vancouver, or Burnaby more specifically, and yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Right. So when you first came to Canada, was that your first visit to Canada?
Yeah, so that was 2006. Came for skiing, snowboarding, spent a few days in Vancouver. And literally at the time I was like, oh, does the firm have any offices there? And they did.
That's incredible. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is such a city of expats and transplants. You know, I came from Ontario, which is a completely different place from here, right? From coast to coast, this continent.
So expensive, right?
Yeah, it's all the Ontario people. Yeah, but it's crazy. Like, I think about all the friends I have here, and so many of them are either from another province or many of them are from overseas. Like one of my best friends, he's from Australia.
Yeah.
And then that friend group, they're all from all over the world, like from Southeast Asia, some others from Australia, Irish, English, even a German. It's crazy how eclectic it is. It's a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
But so I want to go back to the engineering school and the planning and kind of the ideas that you gleaned from that and you learned through that proper education pathway and how that changed. So you talked about Walkable City by Jeff Speck, which is one of my favorite books because it really opened my eyes to the whole spectrum of the city, right? It's not super focused. It's fairly lightweight and entry level, I would say, which is exactly what you need in a lot of cases. So was that like the first book you picked up that changed your mind or opened your mind?
Got to a point in my career where I was just like, you know, what am I doing? Like, I'm just going through the motions, doing what I was taught at school. And I don't know what it was that made me like go search for that book or planning books in general, but I thought we could do better, right? And I was like, I need some inspiration. And literally, that was the first book I downloaded. And I was inspired from there on, right? And obviously read a bunch more since then. It's kind of crazy. You can get that education from, you know, just books. Obviously, they're mostly written by professionals of some sort, but like, why didn't I get that education in school? Now, I graduated in 2000, so things have moved on. Definitely the bike infrastructure planning and design side have moved on. You know, even from 2013, like, again, you know, I think Jeff updated his book, right? Because the bike section in the original one wasn't maybe as progressive as things have gotten, or he didn't see the benefit at the time. So this industry has like been evolving so rapidly, and it still is. Something we're working on. We can maybe get into.
Yeah, absolutely. So about that though, like what's the question I want to ask here? So as far as engineering goes, I'm not an engineer or anything close to it, but do you have to do like continuing education in your specific field?
You do, yeah.
Okay. So is that, are you seeing the changes happen there?
The industry is for sure changing for the better. Like the whole continuing education thing, it's not like you must go learn about induced demand. It's there's a million different things you could look up, right? And would count towards your continuing education. So it needs people to hear it from, you know, at industry events, you know, things, avenues like this. Like YouTube is a huge education, I think, for people these days. Like every time you share like a Not Just Bikes video or your own, you know, it has an impact, and the more people that see it, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an exploding medium. Obviously, that's how I ended up here in the first place. I made videos about like computers and stuff before, and then I just got turned on to this stuff, and the rest is history, so to speak. Yeah, it's pretty wild how much it's influenced this world. I'm just hoping it really, you know, comes to fruition in a way that's concrete, pun intended.
And I think honestly, like the social media side of it has changed a lot. Like again, maybe what inspired me was, I don't remember when I started looking at like Twitter or YouTube or when they started, but seeing like infrastructure from other places in the world so easily. Like you didn't have to go read it in the newspaper or on a website. You just picked up this app and you started scrolling, right? And you're like, oh wow, they're doing this here, they're doing that there. And you know, that's still how I see things. The social media platform might change as you go, but it's still a great way to see new infrastructure.
Honestly, I've always been a fan of VR. So I'm hoping that medium will get really affordable so that we can just, you know, it'll be somehow built into our phones. It just sends lasers into your eyes and you're like, oh, you can experience walking in Paris today or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That'd be huge, right?
I hope we're not always just wearing headsets for the rest of our life. But
no, it definitely, there's something real about reality, obviously, but it is a powerful medium for sure to experience things. So moving on through you moving to Canada, going to engineering school, and this transformation that you had into this new urbanism, some people might call it, to where you are now, right? Because obviously you started this website and this blog called Rolling in the City. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is my second website. It started off as transportationplanning.com, which doesn't exist anymore, or somebody might have bought the the domain name. But back again, it was about the same time. Like I was reading those books. I'd moved to the position at ISL, who I'm with now, the company I'm working with, and I felt like again I was kind of learning stuff, kind of interpreting it, forming my own opinions, and I wanted to, you know, share that with the world, kind of thing. I guess as an early social media thing. So back about 2013 or 14, I'd started that transportationplanning.com thing. It had a lot of stuff on it, like trips, like I still do now, which is the main thing I probably do now. It had like I remember doing like a book review of like Chris Bruntlett's first book, and just general commentary on the planning world, engineering world. And then honestly, like I was trying to think the timeline for this. I've had it in its current form now for a few years. It was probably during COVID when I started doing the books, and I wanted to change it up a bit. And really there was some early stuff there, but for the most part, it was about active transportation, cycling in particular. So I just thought it needed to be a more non-engineering facing website. Like transportation planning is very specific to one discipline, and I want it to be more general, more public friendly. And yeah, what do I do? Like I'm rolling in the city on my bike, taking pictures, and that's how it kind of evolved to where it is. It keeps changing and evolving as I play with it when I'm bored. But
that's the way to do it, right? You have to keep excited, like just be enthused about it. You put that into it and you can see it too. Yeah. I really enjoy seeing the pictures that show up on your social media because it's a glimpse into even just like the book. Like your book is a collection of photographs that are very well done. So it's artistic in a way, but it's informative, and you have these, we'll talk about the book in a minute, but it's really cool to see the photographs because it's something that I'm not good at. I'm not good at taking photos. So to see in that lens is really cool. I really enjoy it.
It's a work in progress. Like I feel like you're never happy with it. Like it can always be better. And the more, like I was into photography way back then, iPhones got better and I kind of drifted away just using my phone. And then it was during COVID, like I was bored just watching things on YouTube, probably street photography, very artistic photography of streets or street scenes. And I was like, I could do something like that, but use it to kind of educate, right? And share like examples of good infrastructure, even bad infrastructure. And so that's where I was like, no, I'm going to buy like a nice camera again. And that's a whole, spend a lot of money doing that.
It's a rabbit hole, man.
It's a rabbit hole, yeah.
You just hope at that one point you can kind of calm down and say, I'm satisfied. This will do.
I think I'm nearly there. I'm waiting on one lens arriving.
The amount of lenses you need is N+1, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like bikes. Yeah, where was I going with that? So I guess I appreciate that you appreciate the photographs. Like, again, in an ideal world, I would be waiting at every location for the perfect light, the perfect person to come through on the cargo bike. But a lot of it's just riding around the cities. Hopefully you see something interesting, somebody interesting riding through it, because I think that kind of makes the picture, right? If it's just an empty street with a bike lane and nobody riding, well, that's not telling the story. But if you see kids riding to school, which is maybe like one of the biggest shocks in the Netherlands, right? It's, oh my God, like every kid is riding to school pretty much. So trying to capture that and show people it can be different than it is here is kind of the real intent of the photographs.
It makes it real in a sense, right? I think that's what's great about it, because it isn't these perfectly aligned shots, the perfect lighting, right? This is what it is. And it feels more real that way. And I think that's a big part of how it's become successful in a way. Like, look at one of the most famous YouTubers in the space, Jason, Not Just Bikes. All of his videos are shot in 60 frames per second because it makes it seem more real, right? In its own way. And I think that's a big way in bringing this to people and making them know that it's real without actually going there and experiencing that themselves. So yeah, I think it does a good job. So let's jump into the book because, again, I love this book. So I've got the PDF here that I can share, unless I like closed it somehow. No, it's here. And this is the title of the book here, Feet's Pad. So can you explain to the people what that means?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Bike path in English.
That's it.
But in reality, it might be a multi-use path, which I always think is a funny addition to add because we hate multi-use paths. But you'll find people walking on those, running, whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's bicycle priority. It's bike path. Yeah.
Yeah. So this book is the documentation of your journey through the Netherlands over almost 3 weeks, or was it exactly 3 weeks? Was it 21 days?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, we can look right here.
On the second
24
page,
days.
There you go. Yeah. 3.5 weeks then. Yeah.
So how did you end up planning this trip and deciding to make this happen?
Yeah. So it's a pretty good story, I guess. So it's not my first trip to the Netherlands. I spent a week there in Amsterdam. I want to say 2015 or 17. I might be getting trips mixed up here, but yeah, like long before COVID, again, I'd been reading those books starting 2013, 2014. I was like, oh, I got to go experience this for myself. So yeah, we spent a week there. Probably were back visiting family, and came back, yeah, like inspired, depressed, in equal measure. But definitely a few ideas in my head that, percolated away. But it wasn't until Nanaimo, we were doing their complete street kind of engineering standards. The big new thing being continuous sidewalks and bike paths, which Canmore had done one at that point, I think. Vancouver maybe had one at Pullman Porter Street and down Olympic Village there, but it wasn't a big thing. Nanaimo not only put it into their standards, so in theory, any kind of local street intersection would have a continuous sidewalk and bike path. But we also built it on Metro Drive, which is, I don't know, a few kilometer corridor at the north end of town, kind of connects them all at the north end to the existing trail that runs north-south through town. We submitted that for a bunch of awards, which it was successful with, generated huge interest within the industry, and now we see them popping up in a whole lot more cities. Canmore are going big on them. Their updated designs might be even more like the Dutch designs. So that's pretty cool to see. Edmonton have a bunch in planning or design. Not sure if there's any constructed yet. There might be one or two. Kitchener have been building a bunch. Ottawa's been building some. I'm probably missing some places there, but it's really taken off. So we did that. We did like a TAC emerging practice kind of briefing, which is the Transportation Association of Canada, which kind of creates all our guidance documents. So kind of say this is a new thing, like people are trying it, you might want to think about it as well. So that's kind of been a journey from like 2018 to the TAC thing just got published last year. And then obviously COVID happened. But through that like COVID period, like we've been seeing the awards come in. It's like, all right, like there's got to be more from the Netherlands than just continuous sidewalks. Obviously they have protected bike lanes, protected intersections, but like I wanted to get into the details and experience a lot more than I did in Amsterdam. So yeah, as COVID was wrapping up, you might say, we booked a month in the Netherlands, and I think we had the first place booked. We had a general, like you see that map there, like we had a general idea of places we wanted to go, but we actually had no real plan. Like everything was kind of booked on the fly, and we just rode between cities and whatever we saw. Like there was, which was a really cool way to do it. Like you're obviously aware of some things like the bike park in Utrecht, like 12,500 capacity thing. Like it's like, oh, I've got to go and see that. I've got to go and see the Hovenring. So there's definitely a few things I wanted to see, but I also just wanted us to explore right around. And I think that's like the best way to get a feel for the how good it is. If you're always seeking it out, you're always going to find it. Like you could come to Vancouver and go ride all the protected bike lanes and think it's amazing, but equally, if you were just trying to get from A to B and not knowing where you're going or not knowing which route to take, you might end up on some horrible roads. So
Yep.
we came back from this trip like, no, we covered a lot of the country here, probably more than I've seen in my own country, Scotland back home. So, and it was amazing everywhere. Like it's incredible. And then we've done the same thing, maybe a bit more organized the last couple of years. But we did another month-long trip in 23 and then one earlier this year as well.
Right. Yeah. So
Just
you're
to keep learning.
yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
It's incredible to see that. And it humbles me because, I've only really been steeped in this stuff for less than 3 years. I've been interested in it. I've always been a cyclist, but to really get into it, I'm a sophomore, really. Like this is my second year of really being deep into it. So I'm excited to learn more. I'm always learning more. So it's humbling to see, you, someone who does this professionally, still learning. And that's what it's all about, right?
I think you're always learning, yeah.
Yeah,
like
even the best place in the world. Yeah,
and
they're
for sure
continually
it can be better there, right?
Exactly, absolutely.
It's not perfect, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, so you covered 21 to 24 days, covering 567 kilometers. Is that biked distance?
Yeah, so I was like had Strava or something running at the time.
Yeah.
I was more curious to see the elevation gain.
Okay, yeah, and how little it is.
Yeah, you can see
total of 1,457 meters.
What was that big day? Arnhem to Apeldoorn, I can't even remember.
Yep, that's the one. Trip. 202, which is like it's
nothing. Yeah,
it's not very much,
especially when it's over whatever it is, 50 or 60K. Like it's
yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Honestly, it is definitely a great feature about the Netherlands and does lend to making cycling more accessible, but e-bikes are changing that for sure.
For sure. So it's not the only flat place in the world, right?
No. So I have a question about some connections. So like, for example, you landed in Schiphol in Amsterdam, went to Utrecht or Rotterdam to Boxtel. When you got on the train, did you just bring your bike on the train?
No. So the first trip, we didn't go there with bikes. There was a shop, I think it's changed names now, but it's called Cheap Bikes in Utrecht.
Okay.
And we went and bought like just 2 crappy Dutch bikes for like €100. Maybe it's 120 or something. Like literally it looked really good. It was black. It's like, no, there's hardly any marks on it. And then you start to see the paint wearing off on the grips and the saddle. And and then I look a bit closer and the tires are all cracked and you're kind of worried when you're bottoming out on curbs and stuff. And, but it was like, it seemed like a good idea at the time to like, go rent proper Dutch bikes, like ride the infrastructure as they do. There was no brakes. It was the back pedal brakes. So like, I haven't ridden those since I was probably a few years old.
Right.
So that was a learning experience, especially like everybody, actually the street here, like that shop is just further down that street. So that was our first place we rode on those bikes. So like tons of people like going by you and we were like, how do we stop? So
you learned
fun.
quick, I imagine.
Yeah. And then we took our own bikes the next 2 trips. So maybe that tells you something.
Okay. Absolutely. That makes total sense. It's interesting, to hear about different people's experience of doing that, traveling and trying to bike places. Cause when I first looked at it and when I did it, I was like, it seemed expensive at first, but then you compare it to renting a car and you're like, oh, this is really cheap. Like even if I paid,
train, you mean?
No, I just mean getting a bike while you're there. Like I was looking at one place and it was €20 a day. And I was like, that's like expensive. And it didn't end up being that. It ended up being like on average, like, I don't know, €11 a day for my bike just to rent it.
Yeah.
Which I could have bought one, I'm sure. But to see that compared to just renting a car, it's probably like €100 a day or something. It's crazy. So yeah, tell me more about the trip. Like how did you capture it? What was any plan that you had at all?
There was no plan other than like, obviously
explore.
We wanted to see Utrecht, we wanted to see Amsterdam, we wanted to see Eindhoven, Rotterdam, like all the big cities really.
Yeah.
Groningen, Where else did we go? Yeah, I'm struggling now to even remember where we went on that trip, or I'm getting my trips confused. But yeah, as I say, there was no plan. We had this place booked for when we landed, and then while we were there, we were booking other places on the go. So just figuring out what we could ride each day, like pretty comfortably, and yeah, 50k, 60k is not too onerous. Yeah, and
I
just
have a question though. Did your ass get sore?
oh yeah,
Because my butt was fucking sore by the end of it.
yeah, no, and I mean I ride bikes a lot, but
Yeah.
it was again it's different seats. I mean, when we had our own bikes, it was much better, but then yeah, you'd still get a sore ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm crippled from the trip we just did to Europe because we were on like weird little rental bikes all the time. Yeah, so I'm still recovering from that.
No, it's been really fun going back through your book. So when I saw you were on Active Towns with John, and that's when I first learned about your book and learned about you. And I had bought the PDF of your book, and I read the first day of Utrecht, and then I was like, I need to do my own trip. So I closed the PDF and I didn't look at it again until after my trip. Not only after my trip, but after I'd published all of my videos, because there's this weird thing that I have where I want to be influenced as little as possible about, from somebody else's content.
Yeah.
Even though I totally ripped off your idea. But afterwards, I finally, I got the hard copy of the book. I went through it and I was amazed at how many similarities there were in the things that you noticed and I did. Mm-hmm. And one of them specifically, and this is a super random one, farther, I think it's in Apeldoorn. You had this photo when I came to it and I was like, oh my God, yes. Cause it put me there. It was something you don't think of it. You think about all this biking infrastructure and the nature, but it was this one right here. And it's a picture of a bull sitting down.
Highland cow. It's not a bull.
Yeah, sorry. I have no idea.
Which are really common back home. And I was like pretty amazed to actually see them in the Netherlands.
Yeah. So my wife and I, this was just by Schiphol. We were riding towards southeast Amsterdam, this long little bike ride through Amsterdam. And there was just two of them hanging out along this bike path. And this is the one of the photos that like so many places you went to in Utrecht and in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, places I biked to, but something about this one, it really like kind of took me back to my trip, which was really cool to see, just that nature. Right. And you talk about how much this makes you feel like you're at home in Scotland too.
Yeah.
Not
If you
just
dropped
because
me
of these,
there, I would have thought I was back home for sure.
Which is interesting to think about because how much you hear about the Highlands, right?
Yeah.
And how much hillier it is, obviously.
And I just think, most content in the Netherlands is focused on the cities, of course, right? And less so much the journey between them. But you can get between pretty much every city safely and comfortably. And
it's
sometimes
incredible.
It's going to be like this through like a nice open moorland. Sometimes it might be along the side of a busy road, but there's a multitude of safe ways to get from each city to each other city.
Yeah, I am envious. I am planning on doing another trip, hopefully next year, where I can explore more places, the less trodden path, because you got to experience, the bicycle highways and stuff like that. I definitely did a lot of stuff in between cities, but nothing like an actual, what do they call them? Is it Dorfietspad or something? Those are the speed. I can't remember the name of basically bicycle highways, like between Arnhem and Nijmegen, for example.
Yeah, there's a lot of them all over.
But like you said, like there's just a plethora of infrastructure. No matter where you go, there seems to be a path. Even when you're just like, I'm just going to try riding somewhere, and it's almost good everywhere. But there is one place that I don't think was great. I mentioned it in one of my videos, which is perfect for this next photo that popped up. So this is, some people call it an edge lane road, advisory bike lane. And the speed limit on this particular country road is 60 kilometers per hour. So if you're maybe just listening to this, just think of a country road, and then there's bike stripes on the sides of the roads, and then a central lane for cars. There's speed bumps along the way. Tell me about this from your perspective.
I guess there's two ways to look at this. And like I felt this on this road here, and then many other roads like it, like in other parts of other trips. One, we felt like we had a right to be there because there's a red bike lane there. You don't feel like you're necessarily getting in driver's way. Um, like if I was on a road like this back in Scotland, just pure asphalt, no colored surfacing or anything, I'd feel like I'm getting in people's way. Not that you rarely are, because there's plenty of space to pass. The biggest problem I have with this treatment on roads like this is cars, and not all cars, or drivers, I should say, they don't all push over to the other side of the road when they're passing you. So they pass you in the grey centre section, which is effectively a close pass. And if they're doing that at 60k, it's uncomfortable. If they're doing that and there's something coming towards you and they have to like, swerve in front of you to get out of the way of the oncoming car, it starts to feel pretty uncomfortable pretty quick. So, advisory bike lanes are good where the volumes are low, where the speeds are low, and volumes of cars as well. In this case, it wasn't terrible, but I have experienced like roads like that have been pretty horrible.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing, right? Low volume, low speeds. I had a few instances where it was uncomfortable. Overall, obviously, it was very, very good, but just a few ones that were made me avoid these roads as much as possible if there was another option, which again, there usually was, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting treatment. It's something that I want to learn more about, because I feel like it's something that can be implemented easily and cheaply in a lot of places where it could just add a little layer of something else, if nothing else, right? If we don't have the space or the money to do a proper separation, which is pretty cool.
I love that this one has speed humps though, like on a 60k road. Like I'd never see that back home. Don't know if we have that many 60k rural roads in Canada. They're probably 80
they're like 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. it is wild.
It is
absolutely.
Pretty subtle as well. It's not like a proper speed hump. You can still go over at a pretty good clip. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I even saw those like along like the coastal highway in Zandvoort. There was like raised crossings essentially for speed humps, and again, it's 60 kilometers per hour, which is unheard of, it seems, in North America. So I have a question. I don't want to give away your whole book here. I just want to say, if you're interested in this book, please go to Roy's website and you can have it printed just for you, and they will send it to you. Or you can get a PDF copy for, I think it's $5.
Super
which
cheap.
is like a great deal. And you can read the whole book.
Cheaper than a coffee these days.
Yeah, actually, it's crazy. Yeah. But I want to ask you, what city is your favorite in the Netherlands? It might be controversial, but
it's an easy answer. It's Utrecht for sure.
Oh, come on.
And honestly, I've tried to explain why that is, and I can't. I think it's just everything. Like, it's not the prettiest city necessarily, although there are some nice old streets. There's a lot of kind of 70s, 80s buildings, but I think just the amount of effort they've put into allocating space for people on bikes, for transit. Like, there's tons of BRT lanes, like bus rapid transit. I mean, obviously there's the highway or busy road they turned back into a canal. There's something reasons that would be your favorite city, but it has like a vibe. I don't know if it's a university town. There's a lot of young people about, just gives it a lively vibe. There's lots of bikes. Hard to say, but for sure it's there.
I totally agree. It was one of my favorite, if not the favorite places that I went to. I really liked Rotterdam for some reason. I think because it felt modern in a way with the tall buildings, and it felt homey, not homey, but familiar to me because of that. But yeah, Utrecht was it had that, it was alive. It felt alive. Yeah. When you're in Amsterdam, it felt similar to Amsterdam, but not as touristy. It felt like just
I think that's the thing. Yeah. I don't actually like going to Amsterdam that much. It is way too busy and touristy, whereas Utrecht, it feels like it's just more locals. Yeah. We're the only tourists.
Yeah.
which I know is not the case. Yeah.
People interested in bikes.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is crazy. It's an amazing place. And if you haven't been to the Netherlands, or if you've been and you haven't been to Utrecht, it's definitely up there because it's so close. It's probably 45 minutes by train from Amsterdam or something like that.
Yeah. I don't even think it's that. It's like half an hour.
Yeah, it's super close. It's not far at all. Yeah.
From the airport.
I biked it from Utrecht to Amsterdam. It wasn't bad. It was beautiful. It was a stunning ride. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you, so when you said you bought the bike, was that for this whole trip? Or are you saying when you came back this time for the book, you had brought bikes? Is that right?
After that trip, we bought the Bromptons.
Okay.
I'd been looking at those for a long time, like thinking I just can't justify it to myself. And I'm like, no, we're buying them for the next trip to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And it's been so useful. I mean, it's a total luxury to have it, but just having your own bike there, it folds. Obviously folds really small. There's like a suitcase where you can take it in as your checked luggage. The bag that goes on the front, your suitcase essentially is your hand luggage. So you're not paying extra for like sports equipment or anything. And then once we land in the airport, bike comes out, suitcase folds flat. We strapped it to the front the first time and then rode the, whatever it was, it took us 5 hours to get to Utrecht. You could probably do it quicker, I'm sure. And then earlier this year, we just stored the suitcase somewhere locally because we knew we weren't going to need it.
Right. Yeah.
Until the end of the trip. So
I've been interested in this, talking to different people who use them. John from Active Towns, Henok for Best Side Cycling. He's a big Brompton guy.
Yeah.
I've been curious about actually investing in this for my next trip. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger, but I'm really wondering how it'll do for longer distances. I don't know.
It's great. Like, I don't know. We did probably 60, 70K. Like my colleague Scott just came back from the Netherlands as well. He bought a Brompton.
Oh yeah.
Was doing similar distances as well. He loved it. I think once you go there, like, and try it and see like the benefits of having your own bike there, you'll be sold.
Especially because you can fold it up and just bring it inside of your hotel room if you needed to, right?
Yeah.
Which is a nice bonus. But how much cargo can you actually carry on this?
Well, it holds like, it says 10 kilograms. I weighed like the suitcase or the Brompton bag that goes on the front is like, I think my one's 25 liters. My wife is 28 liters. So it's like enough clothes for maybe 5 days.
Okay.
And then you just got to do laundry more often.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to take clothes for a month anyway. So
you're not going to carry that much stuff.
Yeah. So we have those bags, and then we usually have a second bag. Like I have the one for my camera and stuff. And then when we're staying somewhere for a few days, I use that little bag and that clips on the front. So again, I'm riding around without a backpack and stuff now. So it's
honestly
getting the system like pretty sussed. Yeah.
I was never on the no backpack gang because I never really did like bike packing or anything. But this trip, they gave me, the saddlebags and put everything in there. And I was able to strap my small backpack just to the rack on the back. Yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. No more sweaty back. My shirt's flowing in the wind.
Yeah.
It was so nice.
It's nice. Oh. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm sold on the pannier bags. They're fantastic. Yeah. So again, Feetspad, go check it out. Highly recommend it. It's a great coffee table book. Please go check it out. Rolling in the City. But there's another book that you have. Oh wait, no. I got one more question. I'm sorry. Rolling back.
Yeah.
So when I came back from my trip in the summer, so I went to Montreal, I went to the Netherlands, England, I went to Paris for a few days, and I compiled all of the videos I took. And it was over 500 gigabytes, which is ridiculous. But I want to know, how many photos did you take during this journey through the Netherlands?
That one's probably 2,000 to 2,500.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, is that a lot or not? Like,
that sounds like a lot to sift through.
It is a lot to sift through, and it takes a long time. Like even the trip we just did there, I've got one blog post out for Paris, but again, I've got another 1,500 photos to sort through for the other places we went. But yeah, it's just, I guess there's so many interesting things you see as you're riding along, so you're always taking pictures, right? And
you don't want to miss it, right?
Yeah, like when I'm doing that here, like I might wait for like 10, 15 minutes somewhere for like somebody to ride through the scene, if you like.
Right.
Whereas in the Netherlands, you're waiting for, well, no time usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just always busy, so it looks great. Lots of well-dressed people, not in their high vis, not in helmets.
Yeah.
It's just, everything looks good there, so.
It
It's
makes it
easy.
really easy, right?
Yeah.
How much traffic there is on bicycles. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, here you're like waiting for like half an hour, waiting for that right shot, the right volume coming in at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So another book that you made a few years ago before Feetspad
Yeah.
is called Accept Bicycles, which I love the name. I love the title. I love the way it looks. It's just so simple, right? I've got it here. I'm just going to share it on screen, which is essentially just the sign that you would see
Yeah.
as a traffic diverter. So tell us about this book.
So I'd done, I guess, if you go back to the book before that, so I'd always been taking pictures wherever I was going. I had them up on Flickr, which a lot of people found kind of useful as a resource. Like I had them all sorted by location and facility type and things. And then again, when I got the better camera, taking nicer photos, I was like, I want to do something. So I put them into the bike lanes book. And that was supposed to be like a very simple introduction to bicycle facility kind of planning and design, like a primer, if you like, if you're new to the subject. So I'd done that. I think it touched on like local street bikeways on one page of that, but it was like I just felt like there was a lot more to that facility type that we had to get into a bit more detail. And there's a lot of good examples in Vancouver and Victoria. So it was like I was starting to build up some pictures of those. Like we were working on some in the day job, and I was like, yeah, this probably needs to be another book. So there it is.
This is the book, which is a passion of mine. Obviously, we've talked about this already in the past, but it's really the backbone of a network. It can be, and I think it should be, because it's easier to implement than saying bike lanes, right? A lot of people think about biking infrastructure. They think about a nice separated two-way cycle track, nice wide one. It's got bollards on the ends. It's got nice big Jersey barriers or something like that, or even the short curbs in the street,
Yeah.
which are sexy, right? It's like the biceps of the bicycle world. But the real working muscles is that network that we have in these neighborhood streets. And it's a superpower that we can really implement in a lot of places, especially if we have a grid like we have in Vancouver and area. It's already set up. It's there, right?
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is divert traffic so that we have these routes for cyclists. And I love the fact that we can make that happen instead of other places, for example, in sprawling suburbia, like much of Canada and the United States, where we have implemented that, but it only works for cars. It makes it so that, yes, cars aren't coming through, only local traffic, but it also prevents people on bikes or on foot from getting around easily. So it's kind of putting that on its head and saying, okay, we're going to make it harder for cars to move through and make it easier for cyclists and pedestrians to move through. It's fantastic. So what do you think are the key things that make these work?
Yeah. Where to start? I mean, if we start with the guidelines, which are pretty good to be fair, it'll speak to volume thresholds, speed thresholds. Typically, less than 1,000 vehicles a day, 30 kilometers an hour or less for the posted speed. Vancouver go a bit further. They have a limit of 500 vehicles per day, or a target. Is this 10th Ave or something here?
Yeah, I'm just sharing some B-roll of 10th Ave.
Yeah, so that's all fine and well. Like those are good thresholds, but I think there's a lot of ways you can enhance that to make sure really, like these can be very safe, and Vancouver's are very safe, and I'd say they probably use a lot of modal filters, traffic diverters, whatever you want to call them, to really reduce the likelihood of you having an interaction with a car, much less a speeding car. In some places, people tend to shortcut if there's like a bikeway, adjacent to a major route. So, 10th Ave's not far off, what you call it, Broadway. So, without those filters in place, you would get a lot of shortcutting through there. The people that are shortcutting are probably impatient because they're trying to get somewhere quick and don't like waiting in traffic. So it's really, the principles are, diverting traffic so that you're less likely to conflict with them. But then if there is traffic on that road, that they're going slow enough. So that could be, in the case here, There was like the modal filter, then there's a stop, so you can never really pick up much speed. But you can also employ what we would call like vertical deflections, horizontal deflections in some cases, so speed humps, speed cushions, chicanes, that kind of thing. Yeah, I guess when we were talking separately, like I have talked about, potentially updating that book to have like more of a inspirational chapter based on the trips to the Netherlands, because they're obviously leading the way with their bicycle streets, which again is a name I much prefer. We use a lot of things here like local street bikeway, neighborhood bikeway. Like, let's just call it what it is, bicycle street. They're the priority. And Montreal have done that. They've got their Veloroo, kind of similar to Paris, I guess. So again, it's a bit of a marketing thing as well. Like, people get on the street, they see very obvious, signage and pavement markings that would suggest that this is a bike route. On these bike routes, even these ones in Vancouver, there's maybe the odd sharrow here and there, but there's nothing that you're seeing here really showing that this is a street for bikes. There's parked cars, but the beauty is there's very few conflicts, and I think Vancouver go pretty hard with the modal filters and the traffic diversion.
Yeah, especially north of King Ed. I feel like it's pretty good.
Yeah. So again, comparing with the Netherlands, they obviously have their red asphalt. So anything that's red, for the most part, is a bike facility. So it's very clear that this entire road is for bikes. I can't see us going that route in North America. Just presumably for cost reasons. I mean, maybe in theory, if you're repaving the road, it's not that big a deal to make it red, but I don't know. Maybe residents' opinions on now living on a red street might.
That's the devil street.
It might make the local paper or something, right? But I think we can do better with our pavement markings. So we've been exploring that on some projects, like essentially doing an English language version of the Feetstrap pavement markings. So it's still a work in progress. I'm hopeful we might see that in a few years. I guess in terms of the vertical deflection, so some bicycle streets in the Netherlands do have speed humps. They're very subtle. Like, I doubt they do actually very little to anybody on bikes or in cars, but maybe just another signal that this is a slower street. I think, again, unless you go really heavy with those modal filters, I think we do need vertical deflection. I'm always advocating for speed cushions over speed humps so that people on bikes can get along the street without that uncomfortable hump, which is brutal. Like, if I'm on my regular bike going slow, it's not too bad, but on my e-bike going faster, it's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
If you've got kids in the back or groceries in the front, it gets even worse.
Yeah, this is something I experienced. I was in Seattle a few weeks ago doing a little bike tour with another YouTuber, and it was that's what I wanted to see, right? I wanted to see everything, but that was specifically, I asked him if we could go check out some local bike routes, and he took me to one that was newly implemented. They went heavy with the sharrows, and the sharrows pointed in both directions and were like in the middle of the street, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
But the speed humps they put in, holy, like my bike, it's just like a city commuter bike, 28-inch wheels, like pretty big wheels.
Yeah.
But every time I hit one of the speed bumps, you hit that first boom, and then on the other side, boom. And it wasn't terrible, but it was not comfortable. So that's definitely a point that I like to think about is, the speed cushions over the speed humps.
Yeah. If you're willing to get up out of your saddle like 3 times a block to absorb that hump, it's fine. But, if you just want to ride along, sitting down, taking your time, it's not the way to go, I don't think. So yeah, I think like Vancouver has that on a few streets. Again, we're trying to push for that on a few projects. So we'll see what happens in the next few years. The other big thing that I've been pushing for, and I guess again is super common in the Netherlands, is a lot of their bicycle streets, because there's local streets, I guess, teeing into them, is they have continuous sidewalks there. So even though it might not even have like a yield control sign or anything, anybody coming onto the bicycle street in a car has to slow down to negotiate that continuous sidewalk and turn slowly onto the bicycle street. So like, I've almost been hit twice, people just blowing straight through stop signs, like on the cross street, like they're not even there. So a big thing we've been trying to push for as well is having ideally a continuous sidewalk on the cross streets, so that it slows down anybody turning on and off the bike street. And again, watch this space. Maybe in a few years we'll have something like that constructed and kind of a showcase for North America, hopefully.
I would love it. I would really love it because it's, a place that I think is really lacking across North America, but even in Vancouver, one of the better bicycling cities in the continent. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, even on, like I'm showing here, this is 10th Avenue. It goes along. It's one of the busiest east-west bicycle routes in the city. Obviously here, I think this was in January on a Sunday morning that I took this. So it wasn't busy at all in general. But even here on one of the better ones, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially with those cross routes, drivers going through the stop signs. I've seen many times people almost get hit. I've had many conflicts with drivers on those. But I think the modal filters are huge that really need to be implemented in more places, especially in the south of the city, because that's where I find is very much lacking.
Yeah, the one thing just came in my mind there is you're talking about like the backbone of the system. Like it is like the protected bike lanes are the stars of the system, I think, and really motivate people to like ride a bike if they don't already. It's like, oh wow, there's like a protected bike lane now on my route that I'm driving to work. Whereas these streets, again, they don't shout bicycles, which again I swear I think the pavement marking and signage can do a better job of making this seem more like an amenity, an actual facility, not just it's a local street with a couple of like bollards at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
So it can do a better job of like almost advertising itself to potential cyclists, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, like you said about the Fietsstraat, the bicycle street in the Netherlands, like I've been told that that's not an actual like legal thing. Like the communities use it, the municipalities use it as just a signal to people, right? Which could be that could just be here, like just to say that like this is a bicycle street, it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, like we get so hung up on like legal things, like there's nothing to say you can't put a pavement marking on the road that says bicycle street, right?
yeah, totally. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops across the continent, especially. But it's been very encouraging to see certain cities really go ham. Like in Montreal, I had the opportunity to finally visit in June. It was amazing. Like it was fantastic. Like, does it compare to the Netherlands? It's not quite there yet, but as far as it goes here in the continent, wow, I was blown away. Amazing.
Yeah. Like I was there last year sometime in September, I think, and first time there for 10 years, and it was really good. Yeah.
It's incredible. And to see, I know the Urbanity posted a video not too long ago on Rue Saint Denis, which is when I rode Saint Denis, and there's other corridors like that now in Montreal where it was like a 4-lane with 2 lanes of parking on each side that they've turned into 2 lanes for cars and one in each direction. It's some parking and a bike lane. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like this is what we need in Vancouver, in Kitsilano on 4th Avenue, or on Main Street. And so many places, I feel like this would just be a huge win for the communities, the businesses, and the people who want to visit those places. They're doing a fantastic job. So to see that, so back to the video I was talking about, where they just put the camera there for 30 minutes, counting all the bikes that went by and all the cars that went by, and more bikes went by than cars in this corridor. It's just like, you can see how efficient bicycles can move. It's a thing of beauty.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You go so deep on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we will in the future for sure. Yeah. So I think we should end it here, but is there anything else you want to share before we end the show?
Not too much. I just posted the first blog from the recent trip a week or 2 ago. So that was Paris. So we were, I guess our main destination was Belgrade there, so we had to fly through somewhere. Figured a stopover in Paris was due, given all the good work they've been doing. So yeah, that's up and posted, so people can go check that out. There will be ones from Belgrade, from Croatia, from Budapest, Vienna, and then we finished up in Nijmegen. We're flying out of Amsterdam. So yeah, that's my favorite thing to do now is go just exploring, taking photos, documenting it, sharing it. Hopefully it inspires somebody to do something cool and And everybody else can copy it, right?
Absolutely. Well, you inspired me. At least one person was concretely.
There
So
we go. It was
yeah,
worthwhile then, right?
yeah, absolutely. No, I really appreciate it. And I keep doing it because I don't want to see it stop. I'm someone who's been enjoying it. I know there's other people who are also enjoying the work that you put out. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again. And yeah, so your website is rollinginthecity.ca. You can check out Roy's books there, like Feet's Pad, Except Bicycles. And sorry, what was the third book? The first one?
Bike lanes.
But yeah. And yeah, that's the show. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nick.